What's up and welcome back? I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm tackling the new Apple Plus show, Before, uh, which dropped just at the end of spooky season. I don't know why they dropped this one in a way where it's going to run into November, and why we didn't swap this with disclaimer. Life choices, I would say, to Apple. I would say I would have swapped the release dates now that I'm watching Disclaimer and Before. I would have swapped it so that because Disclaimer is going to finish essentially on November 1st, is when its episodes will finish. So if Before had spent more time in October creeping the hell out of people, I think that would have been a lot better. And Disclaimer could have dropped now and then run into November, basically running into uh in November. Apple's got Bad Sisters and Silo, which I know that they have to be excited about the 1-2 punch of that, but um I'm excited for Silo. I kind of gave up on Bad Sisters, but I'm thinking about rewatching it just because of the Emmy love. But then again, I also haven't felt compelled to get back into Slow Horses, which was a show I watched and I felt like no one was watching. And I watched like the first 2 seasons, and then I stopped, and then all of a sudden everyone was like, oh my God, Slow Horses. I'm really excited about it. I'm like, when did you guys start watching Slow Horses? Because I couldn't find anybody before. I felt like nobody was watching this show. I was in season 2, and I was like, is anybody watching this? No one? I didn't like season 2 as much as season 1, so I was like, oh, fuck it, whatever. Then all of a sudden, season 3, they're like, oh my God. Emmy, Golden Globes, and like things were happening. I had no idea people were watching Slow Horses. It's a very weird world. I tried, and I just, I don't know to jump back in because I feel like I'm going to jump back in and suddenly shows people are going to stop watching it again. But um, yeah, this is Billy Crystal doing drama, which is incredibly compelling to me because he doesn't do much of it. He mostly stands in comedy. Not he doesn't have great performances. I think people would look at like When Harry Met Sally, and if he and Meg Ryan had somehow managed Oscar nominations for that, not wins, nominations, I don't think people would have been mad because of the iconic nature of that film and what they pulled off. And there's a little bit of dramedy in there. There's a little bit of like truth in relationships. I think that film could have been a nomination for him. My favorite work of his really is Analyze This, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. I'm absolutely going to be revisiting that film. But that always makes me laugh. I love that movie. Aside from, of course, Monsters Inc. voice work, I don't want to say the best thing you've done is provide a voice for a Pixar cartoon to a comedian. So, but he's been doing solid work for forever, um, and it's compelling to see him in this like psychological thriller. This is a really weird show. It's a really dark show, and I don't even know what it's fully about to be able to tell you after watching 2 episodes. So this is more like a pilot review of anything else. It's just Apple presented 2 episodes at drop. So it's sort of like there's 2 episode pilot, even though technically you're never really guaranteed the second episode. I usually say that when I'm reviewing pilots. It's like your pilot has to be strong because there's no guarantee that anybody's going to stay for the next episode. You have to get them interested with something, some reason, so that even if you're mediocre, that there's a reason for them to go into the second episode. Because if your first episode is terrible, people may not come back. They may do one and done. They may be like, that episode's 2. I don't care where it goes. I don't care who's in the show. I thought that was a terrible episode. I'm not watching anymore. But because there's so much television on nowadays. And the problem is that the streaming game has changed the way TV shows work. Nobody's creating pilots. They're just getting series orders. They're getting creators together with talent, and they're just ordering things to series. So the art of the pilot has been lost, and people now we're getting like really bad pilots. Happy's Place is a terrible pilot. Like it's a god awful pilot. But they're like, it's got Reba, and who cares? They're just like things are getting ordered to series that never would have been ordered to series before, simply because, and I say that knowing back in the day, when we actually were having pilot season, you're like, oh, well, it's a Reba show. Of course it would have been. No, you have no idea how many shows starring name actors were constantly turned down because their pilots didn't come back well. So I'm telling you, pilot season used to be a killer, even for people of Reba's size. So even for something like a Billy Crystal show, could have been a killer for him. Very few things were given series orders. It was considered such a big deal if you were able to skip the pilot phase back in the day. Now everything gets series orders. Very few things get pilots. So I don't think Before has been hurt by that. I think this is a compelling, but many shows have. Many shows have very weird pilots that don't necessarily pull you in. This one, if anything, pulls you in with its oddities. It sets you up with a child psychologist, Eli, who is played by Billy Crystal, and he's in his house, and we see him sort of talking to a ghost. He's got this little dog. Yeah, his wife is recently deceased, which you'll figure out for yourself throughout the thing. The actual opening of episode 1 is very bizarre and has not been given context. There's like a pool, climbing out of it, falling back in, cracking your head. Like, he has these weird like nightmares and he doesn't know what they mean. So I don't know what it means to the course of the series. There are apparently 10 episodes of this, and I've seen 2. So we've seen 1/5 of the series. But he finds a little boy that's scratching at his door so badly that his like nails are bleeding. So the kid runs off. Luckily, the kid comes back. Eventually, he follows the kid to where the kid is at, meets the kid's foster mother, and but the kid doesn't talk, and the kid's just very odd. The kid's your typical like sort of like horror movie child that is just creepy, and you're like, this can't be good. And meanwhile, Billy's dealing with all these weird dreams and flashbacks and remembering his wife who took her life. We don't necessarily know why. Those questions are being answered. Sometimes she'll talk to him. She'll be there. Sometimes he just kind of talks to her like he thinks her ghost might be there, and he might be ready to have a conversation with her. Lots of really weird dynamics. His daughter does show up in the second episode, so he does have a daughter who will be a part of this, and she pops in. I don't want to spoil everything. I'm just going to mention he has one. There are some other recognizable actors here, notably Rosie Perez and Judith Light. Both play roles in the show. And the little kid, I noticed his last name is Jupe. It's like Ezekiel Jupe or something. I don't know. I can't remember what the kid's first name was. I'm like, this has to be the Noah Jupe family is this is the Elle Fanning of the Jupes coming along. Obviously, the next one coming up, the behind older brother Noah, who has been doing pretty exceptional work thus far in his career. So I expect good things from this boy, much the same way when we got Elle Fanning following Dakota Fanning, we were like, oh, well, this girl's going to be, yep, she's fantastic. Per typical. Something's in the water in this family. But here, it's there, we see all these things that don't necessarily have context or make any sense, and he's having nightmares and dreams, and his reality is shifting. We never know, is he in reality or is he not in reality? So it's a very odd series. So like within the first 2 episodes, I can't fully tell you. I can tell you that legitimately, and I don't, like, horror movies don't really work on me with audio description and everything. You have to build the tension, and you have to know what to say and how to say it and how to build it. And it's sort of like almost like it's what the masters are able to do. And they don't do it through gore and jump scares. They do it through themes. And I will say, I legitimately had chills at the end of the episode because it went where it didn't go where I thought it was going to go. And like it's building towards something, and your obvious is building towards something, and they're mounting this tension, and you have a good idea, and you're like, okay, I think it's going to go here, and then it doesn't go there, and it goes somewhere else, and I legit had chills. So the end of the second episode, I was like, oh, shit. I could feel them. I was like, oh my God. So there's a lot that goes on in this series. I want you to discover for yourself. I give this a glowing recommendation. In terms of audio description, I think the audio description is exceptional because of what it's being asked to do. Again, he's slipping in and out of reality. Is he in a nightmare? Is he in real life? And it's the same thing with the boy. There are times when we're shown just Noah. And I think it's interesting also that the character is, maybe the name of this character is the name of what I think is his older brother. So, anyway, just a weird tangential thing that has no relation. But so Noah, we see him separately and we see what he can see without Eli in the room. So there's no reason it can't connect to Eli's. I don't think Eli's having nightmares about what Noah's seeing. So I had questions about, like, is Noah real? But it's not until you see other people interacting with Noah, like more and more people in the real world. So you're like, either the whole thing is a dream, the whole thing is a dream, because Noah can't be a dream. Noah has to be physically real. Noah has interacted with way too many people. Like, he couldn't have imagined the house. You know, he couldn't have, because when he went to the house and met just the foster mom, I was like, well, it could still be not real. He's only ever met one other person who's ever met her. And basically we're in the situation of like The Others or something like that right now, where I'm like, okay, there are not enough people who have seen these people to interact with them. Noah has interacted with way too many people. He's been in like a MR. He's got an MRI or whatever in one of those machines. Like, too many people have interacted with him. He is real, or the entire thing is not. So we'll find out by episode 10. But I enjoy the show. It's creepy. And it definitely fits October. And it's kind of sad that only technically 2 of the episodes are going to air in October, and the rest of them are going to be in November. I feel like Apple has a missed opportunity here in terms of what they could have programmed in October. It's very odd that right at the end of spooky season they're like, here's our scary show. What else did we give you in October? Shrinking? Disclaimer. Are those scary? No. Then why? I don't know. I don't know. Because, you know, there's not really a rhyme or reason behind it. So, anyway, that's it. That's my review of Before. Glowing, audio description, fantastic. Really, when you have things that, what is real, what is not, the audio description can't push and pull too much. A lot of times the narrator has seen all 10 episodes, the writer. So they have to, it's one of those things where when you're doing, I talked about this a little bit with like Presumed Innocent, you have to be careful about what it is that you reveal. Because if you reveal something ahead of time and it's too weird, and you suddenly point out like that an object is there, then it's like, why did you point that out to me? Why did you point out the candlestick? That's an odd thing to say. I don't usually get candlesticks in audio description. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to, it's like, but if the candlestick's important, you have to figure out a way how to like slide it in there by pointing out that maybe the table is set with plates and a candlestick. So that way we know there's a candlestick on the table. But you have to do it in such a subtle way where it just seems like you're just giving us description. And so nothing has stood out to me as being like an early red flag that would reveal too much of what's ahead. And this is a show where absolutely you don't want to know what's ahead. But also because of that, I can't fully tell you whether this show works, because a lot of this hinges upon where is this going and what does this end look like. So I could give it an A now, and then by the time I get to episode 10, be like, it's an F. The payoff is not worth it. That's the funny thing about a show like this, when they're, you know, like, when you're messing with reality, and they're not answering all the questions, and it's not as clear cut and dry as some other shows, is you're hinging that the ride is going to be worth it all the way to the end. occasionally that's not true. I'm hoping that this is not one of those cases, because I think Billy Crystal's doing some really good work here. Anyway, I'm giving it an A. Recommend. And thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.